Hello, my name is Kevin Patti. I am a park ranger with the George Washington Memorial Parkway, and we are at the Clara Barton National Historic Site in Glen Echo, Maryland. This house was Clara Barton's home for the last 15 years of her 90-year life. It was also the first permanent home to the organization that she founded and then led for 23 years, the American Red Cross. This building was three things to the American Red Cross. It was a home to volunteers. Not only Clara Barton, a volunteer, lived here, but 10 to 12 other people sometimes lived here, and were ready to leave this house together to go help people that had been touched by disaster, by floods, by hurricanes, by other natural disasters, or by war. They had the supplies they needed. There are over 50 closets in this house. There are many rooms that held disaster relief supplies in this house. There is a vault behind the corner closest to us that held $3,000. So if they learned of a disaster on a Sunday and the bank was closed, they didn't have to wait for the bank to open. They had the personnel under one roof, they had the supplies, and they had the money to start their trip. They could open those doors, load wagons, go to trains, and to wherever it was that they were going. The Galveston hurricane of 1900 that killed more than 5,000 people was responded to by the American Red Cross from this building. The Spanish-American War in Cuba 3 times was responded to from this house in Glen Echo. This house really reflects Clara Barton's personality. We can find that she was dedicated to her work, right? This was her home, but it was also the center of her work. It also reveals that she was creative, that she was frugal. This building was a gift to Clara Barton from the developers of this town, Glen Echo. They thought having a famous American would help their town be a success. Clara Barton was known as the angel of the battlefield for her Civil War work of 30 years before this gift. She was well known and well liked, and so they gave her the building, and she was happily here for the rest of her life. But she had to finish it. It was first a warehouse, and then she had to make it a home. And rather than spend a great deal of money plastering rooms, she used cotton muslin, a material they used for bandages, to cover a lot of the walls and a lot of the ceilings. So the house really reflects her frugality, her resourcefulness, her creativity, and again, her dedication to her work. This year, we're marking the 200th birthday of Clara Barton. She was born on Christmas Day, 1821. And there's no better place to think about Clara Barton than this house that she loved to live in so much at the end of her life. Clara Barton was from Massachusetts. She was born 50 miles west of Boston in North Oxford, Massachusetts. There was a tradition of service in her family. She had 2 brothers, she had 2 sisters. They were all more than 10 years older than she, and they were teachers, public school teachers. Her father was active in the local militia and was proud of it. Her grandfather had served in the Revolutionary War. And Clara Barton, as a young child, was engaged in helping the less fortunate in her community. And she followed her siblings into teaching. At 17 years of age, she was a school teacher, and she overcame a very shy nature to get good at it. She taught in a bunch of schools around Massachusetts by the time she's 29. And at that point, she wants to go to school. She wants to go to college, and she finds one in New York that will welcome women. She climbs on a train and went to Clinton, New York. She enjoyed a year of college. She made a good friend at school named Mary Norton. And after college, she moves with Mary to New Jersey and ends up in Bordentown, New Jersey. And there on a Tuesday, a lot of kids roam the streets. On a Wednesday, on a Thursday, a lot of school-age kids aren't in school. Bordentown didn't have a public school system like Massachusetts did. They had private schools, and not all the families could afford them. And so Clara Barton decided to start a free public school in Bordentown, New Jersey. She got approval from the officials in the town to do that. She taught for free for a couple months, and it worked. The public wanted this. More and more children wanted to take part in this. And for the next year, the town decided to build a bigger school, to hire more teachers, to hire a principal to run this larger institution. Now, they liked Miss Barton. They were grateful to her. But in 1852, when they were looking for someone to be the principal of a school of 600 students, they weren't looking for a woman, and so didn't consider Miss Barton a candidate for principal. They hired a man and paid him more than twice the amount they had paid Clara Barton. And so soon after that, she left New Jersey and left school teaching and came to Washington, D.C. She was living in our nation's capital when the Civil War began. And when President Lincoln called for volunteers to come to Washington and ready up for this war, some of the first men to come were from where she was from, Massachusetts. And they traveled by train. When they got as far as Baltimore on the 19th of April, they had to change trains. They had to get off of one and walk through Baltimore streets to another. And as those Massachusetts men walked, people threw rocks at them. People that lived in Baltimore and sympathized with the Confederacy rioted, pushed, and shot guns. And now those Massachusetts men would get on the train and finish their trip to D.C. And Clara Barton is someone who heard the news come over the wires, wanted to help those men, and started to. And that was the beginning of the rest of her work. She helped the soldiers throughout the Civil War. She found that she knew some of those Massachusetts men as former students that she had taught in Oxford and Worcester County. So she helps throughout the war. After the war, she goes to Europe and learns of the Red Cross, which had started in Europe, comes home and urges us to form an American Red Cross, and then leads that organization until she resigns in 1904. The brothers that founded Glen Echo, Maryland, Edward and Edwin Baltzley, offered to give Clara Barton this property and helped her build this house. And they were starting a Chautauqua Assembly, which would offer people lectures and book discussions and classes and concerts in the summertime. People that lived in Washington would come away from Washington to be on vacation and enjoy those programs. The Chautauqua did not endure. Glen Echo, the Chautauqua grounds morphed into an amusement park, and Glen Echo Park had a long life as an amusement park. Today, the amusement park has closed, and it is a national park site and also an art park, a place for classes and concerts. It's something of a Chautauqua again. And so it's right next door to Clara Barton National Historic Site, and we're going to go over there next. We are in Glen Echo Park inside the 1921 Dentzel Carousel. This carousel is in its centennial year, its 100th anniversary. It was installed here fresh from the factory in the Germantown section of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it's been here ever since. It's intact. All of the animals are original, and they have all been restored to look the way they did when they were new in 1921. This is the crown jewel of Glen Echo Park today. Today the park is a cultural arts center and a part of the National Park System. Previously this was Washington's premier amusement park for 70 years. From 1898 up until 1968, Glen Echo Amusement Park was a destination for Washingtonians. For much of that time, the park was owned and operated by the streetcar company. The company that ran trolleys through Washington, D.C., built the park as a destination for streetcar riders. You rode the trolley to work on Monday through Friday, but on Sunday, on Saturday, in the evening, you could ride the trolley to Glen Echo Amusement Park. trolley passes from the 1940s had pictures of the roller coaster, pictures of the Crystal Pool. On the trolley pass, you were enticed to come out to visit Glen Echo Amusement Park. And many people did that. The tragedy of the situation was that the amusement park wasn't available to everyone. This was a segregated amusement park for most of its history. In the summer of 1960, Howard University students formed a group called the Nonviolent Action Group, NAG, and they were inspired by recent civil rights protests in Greensboro, North Carolina, drugstore lunch counters. And so the Howard students, NAG, decided to do a sit-in of their own in Arlington, Virginia, at segregated drugstore lunch counters. It turned out that Arlington was the headquarters for George Lincoln Rockwell's American Nazi Party. And so when the Howard University students protested, the American Nazi Party counter-protested. And the attention of that, the contrast brought a great deal of attention, media attention, to this incident. And the owners of the drugstores owned other stores in the north, and the attention was harmful, they thought, to their overall business. And so they were quick to say, integrate, open up those drugstores in Arlington to everybody. And so the Howard students were successful at changing the policy of segregation in the space of 2 weeks. And then they had to say, what do we do next? And someone said, Glen Echo Amusement Park. And so on June 30, 1960, they arrived at the front entrance to this amusement park and were given some passes by white patrons to the carousel. And the Howard University students, the protesters, NAG, did a sit-in on the carousel. The park police, the park security guard, also an off-duty police officer, informed them that the park was segregated, that they had to leave, and when they refused, they were arrested. And that began, that was the beginning of ongoing protests through the summer of 1960. Across the street from Glen Echo Amusement Park is a community called Bannockburn. Bannockburn was started in the 1940s by Jewish Americans who had been prevented from buying real estate in other parts of the Washington, D.C. area because of real estate covenants. And so they started their own development, Bannockburn. And they happened to be people that had experience in the labor movement, knew something about protesting. A lot of them were federal employees, and they were against segregation. And so when the Howard students started the protests here, the Bannockburn community was eager to join the effort. And they brought their children, and they made signs, and they made schedules, they made songs, and together this group on an interracial basis protested throughout the summer. They had to man the picket line from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 11 o'clock at night, Monday through Friday, and 3 until midnight on Saturday and Sunday. So that's 40 hours of volunteer labor that they sustained throughout the summer. The owners of the amusement park did not give in to that pressure. The park did not change their policy until just before opening in the spring of 1961. So ultimately the effort was successful, and the park stayed open to everyone for the last 7 years of its operation. This carousel has 3 rings of animals. It has an outer ring with animals that are larger, and they're for adults, and adults would try to grab the brass ring. This arm is full of steel. This arm was filled with steel rings, but there was one gold ring or brass ring. And this ring machine was positioned by the ride operator so that it was just barely reachable. And this carousel really whips around at a quick rate. It was faster back in the old days. And so if you grabbed a ring at all, it was an accomplishment. If it was a steel ring, you didn't get anything. But a gold ring or brass ring, it meant that you got a free ride. And that that brass ring is referred to in many popular songs, many movies. It really symbolizes taking a chance. It means going for it. It means hoping for the best. The outer rings were for adults, and all of the animals had a romance side. The side facing the audience is more highly decorated and is meant to draw people in. The other two rings are smaller, and they jump. They go up and down as the carousel goes round and round. And yes, they're for children. This carousel was painted. During the amusement park years, 70 years, this carousel was refreshed every year or so, like so many other buildings. And what do you think happened when they painted it again and again and again? It didn't stay the same, it changed. And so by the 1970s, when the National Park Service had arrived here, they found a carousel that was very different from its original 1921 appearance. And they had the problem of trying to restore the carousel to the way it was when it was new. In the 70s and 80s, before the internet, it was hard to figure out how to do that work. Carousel restoration wasn't an everyday occupation. A National Park Service employee, Nick Veloz, who had an experience taking care of monuments in Washington, D.C., was given the task of leading the restoration effort. He had a background in archaeology, and when he was told that all of these animals had been stripped and there was no original paint on them, he didn't believe it. And he was able to end up finding out that the original paint was intact, and was able to develop a process to uncover small parts of the original paint layer and use those little windows as guides to restoring all of the animals. So now they've all been restored, and all of the features on this lovely carousel have been restored to the way they were when they were new, and they're maintained every fall, so that the carousel will continue to be a delight to generations in the future. People have gotten married here. People have come here as children and then grown up and brought their children and then their grandchildren. This is a place that is very present in the hearts of so many people. The Dentzel Carousel operates Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday from 10 to 2, and Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 5. It operates May through September. And the Clara Barton National Historic Site is closed currently for preservation work. We hope that it will open in the summer of 2022 and be open in the fall. You can check the website, the park's website, for current information. There are more than 1,000 classes offered here at Glen Echo Park. The nonprofit organization that manages the arts programming, the Glen Echo Park Partnership for Arts and Culture, has a website, glenechopark.org. You can find information about the carousel and about all the programs on that website. We hope that you will visit Glen Echo Park and Clara Barton National Historic Site in person soon.